Today, we're diving into a huge question for any investor, and we're going to do it through the lens of one of the most brilliant books out there, Investing: The Last Liberal Art.
Hello and welcome again to a new video from the blog Irrational Investors. This time is about one of the most interesting books we have ever read, Investing: The Last Liberal Art. Let's dive in.
So let's start with the central puzzle, the big question. Why on earth do so many incredibly smart people make such baffling mistakes when it comes to investing? Well, the answer, it turns out, has almost nothing to do with finance. It's all about how our own minds are wired.
You see, the psychologist Daniel Kahneman showed that we basically have two operating systems in our brain. There's system one, that's our gut reaction. It's fast, it's automatic, it's effortless, and it's fantastic for, day-to-day stuff. But it's also where all our biases live. Then you have system two. That's our deep, analytical mind. It's slow, logical, and takes real effort to fire up. And here's the kicker. Almost every single major investing blunder comes from letting our fast, flawed system one make the call.
So, if our default setting is the problem, what's the fix? Well, the legendary investor Charlie Munger gave us the blueprint. He said you have to build a latticework of mental models. What does that mean? It means you can't just live in the world of finance. You have to borrow the most powerful ideas from all kinds of different fields to build a toolkit for that analytical system 2 of yours. So here's our game plan. We'll start with that core dilemma, then we're going to build our toolkit. We'll grab some lenses from science, then from human behavior, and then from what I like to call the thinker's toolkit. Finally, we'll put the whole shebang together.
All right, let's be clear about the challenge. The real battle for better returns isn't out there in the market. It's right here, inside our own heads. The goal is to build a process, a system that helps our slow, rational system 2 win the argument against the fast, emotional, and often dead-wrong impulses of system 1.
Okay, first stop on our journey, science. Specifically, we're going to look at the field that gave us our very first economic models, physics. Now, it gave us a really elegant, beautiful view of the market, but as you're about to see, it's also dangerously incomplete.
The big idea from physics that early economists fell in love with was equilibrium. Think of it like a perfect scale, with supply on one side and demand on the other, always finding a perfect, stable balance. It's neat, it's tidy, and man, does our System 1 brain just love simple patterns like that.
But here's the thing, the market isn't a simple machine. It's a messy, chaotic zoo. And this table, inspired by the work of Brian Arthur, shows that massive shift in thinking. The old physics view imagines rational investors in a simple system that's always seeking balance. The new, biological view, it sees a much more realistic picture, a complex, ever-changing ecosystem filled with emotional, different investors. It's not a clock, it's a rainforest. That idea, moving from a machine to an ecosystem, leads us perfectly to our next set of mental models. Because if the market is an ecosystem, we have got to understand the creatures living in it. And that means understanding human behavior, both in crowds and as individuals. So, let me start with a quick story. Back in 1906, a scientist named Francis Galton went to a county fair. There was a contest to guess the weight of an ox, and 787 different people wrote down their guess. What do you think happened? The result is absolutely mind-blowing. The average of all 787 guesses was 1,197 pounds. The ox's actual weight? 1,198 pounds. They were off by a single pound. This is the wisdom of crowds, and it works like magic, as long as you have diverse opinions and independent thinking. The moment that disappears, the wise crowd turns into a dangerous mob.
So what makes us follow that mob? Well, this takes us into psychology and what might be the single most important bias for any investor to get a handle on: loss aversion. Kahneman and Tversky proved that the pain we feel from losing a dollar is twice as powerful as the pleasure we feel from gaining one. This one bias is our absolute greatest enemy. It's what makes us panic sell at the bottom and hold on to our losers for way, way too long.
Okay, so we understand the market as an ecosystem, and we know the psychological traps that we're all prone to. Now we need some practical tools for thinking, for knowing, and for calculating. Let's build our thinker's toolkit.
Let's start with a lens from philosophy and a real-world puzzle. Back in the early days of Amazon, how did most people describe it? The easy answer was this: it's an online bookstore, right? Just a digital version of Barnes & Noble.
Then, as it grew, the description got a little bigger. Okay, now it's a general retailer. It's an online Walmart. But here's the thing. Both of these descriptions led investors to a very specific and ultimately very wrong valuation of the company.
But a few sharp investors saw something completely different. They realized Amazon wasn't really a retailer at all. It was a distributor with negative working capital, just like Dell Computers. Think about it. Amazon gets paid by you, the customer, long before it has to pay its suppliers. This philosophical redescription wasn't just a fun little mental game. It was a multi-billion-dollar insight that cracked the code on their entire business model.
So, how do we get better at finding those game-changing descriptions? Well, the lens of literature gives us a simple answer. You have to read. A lot. And widely. It's not about memorizing facts, it's about building a deep understanding. You know, reading a detective story like Sherlock Holmes actually sharpens the exact same analytical skills you need to tear apart a company's annual report.
And finally, we absolutely need the tools of mathematics. Warren Buffett brilliantly takes this ancient fable from Aesop and calls it the world's first investment model. It's perfect. It forces you to ask 3 simple questions. 1, how many birds are in that bush? 2, when are you actually going to get them? And 3, how certain are you? That right there is the entire foundation of the discounted cash flow model, the core tool for figuring out what any business is actually worth.
All right, let's bring it all home. We've collected all these amazing lenses from different fields. The goal now isn't just to have them sitting in a toolbox, but to weave them together into a powerful framework for making smarter decisions.
This is how it works. Biology teaches us to see the market as a complex ecosystem, not a simple machine. Sociology helps us figure out if the crowd is being wise or if it's a stampeding herd. Psychology forces us to confront our own worst enemy, our biases, like loss aversion. Philosophy gives us the power to redescribe problems and find those hidden insights. Literature is how we build up that base of knowledge. And finally, math gives us the tools to put a price on it all. This is your checklist for engaging System 2.
You see, the path to becoming a better investor is really the path to becoming a better thinker. It takes real commitment to keep learning across this whole spectrum of knowledge. So as we wrap up, looking at this toolkit, the real question is for you to think about, which one of these lenses do you need to sharpen the most?
That's all. Thanks again, and see you soon with another video from Irrational Investors. www.irrationalinvestors.com